Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Page Bait. That's right, this is the show where I read the first couple pages of some of the most popular books I know nothing about and give you my unfiltered, unwanted, unhelpful, knee-jerk reaction to what I'm reading. Today, I selected this book called This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me. Spoiler alert, it will probably kill me. Let's find out by reading a sample. All right, first of all, we got this really nice, pretty cover. I love it's like light and pretty. That's a nice change. I feel like way too many fantasy books are like super dark and broody. We've got this long-necked giraffe bird on the front. I like that the author's name is really pretty, Ilona Andrews. I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and read a sample. Go past all the praise. Yep, we know people like this book. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a popular book, and I wouldn't be reviewing it for this channel. Cartorin. Got some maps. Those are very, very detailed maps. Chapter 1. Month of the Planter. Day 6. Oh, so we've got our own, like, timekeeping methods in this world. Very nice, Ilona. Rain drenched the city, cold and relentless. It leached all the color from the medieval-looking buildings, turning the world gray and soaking through the filthy rag in which I had swaddled myself. Medieval-looking buildings. That's quite, I mean, what are we talking about? Like Europe? Like what part of Europe? I'm assuming they mean like, fairy tale, like medieval Europe type of buildings, but that is quite a broad description right there. The medieval time period happened across the world, my friend. The three-story buildings towered over the alley like the walls of a stone canyon boxing. I can't read. I'm like a stone crayon box. I have no right to say anything about these books when I can't even read them properly. What is going on? Sometime between yesterday evening and this morning, my stomach had turned into a painful, bottomless pit. I hadn't eaten in 3 days. I wasn't even shivering anymore. My body didn't have the energy. So we're in a medieval fantasy world where everything sucks, as per the course of medieval fantasy worlds. But this it had such like a bright, happy cover with the giraffe bird on it. Why is everything so sad now? All right, let's see. I checked on my rock again. It lay in a puddle by my feet, a cream-colored chunk of building stone about the size of a large grapefruit. She's thinking about food, see? Any bigger, and it would be too hard to grip with one hand. I had found it this morning and carried it through the rain for 2 hours until I found the right bridge. The rock was still there. I touched it with my foot to make sure. It felt solid and real. I peeled myself from the wall and leaned a little to glance out of the alley. In front of me, a narrow stone bridge spanned the width of a rain-swollen river. Another wall of medieval buildings loomed on the other side. But if she's living in medieval times, does she know it's medieval times? Does she like, because to her, aren't they modern buildings, technically? Unless she's a time traveler, which maybe she is. This is why I really should read the descriptions of these books before I actually jump in. I don't know, maybe someday people will be looking at like, this like 1950s house that I live in, and they're going to be like, ah, that's a medieval looking house because it will be by then. You just don't know, huh? Now I gotta find my place because I ranted too long. Thanks, internet. I'm just gonna blame everyone for my problems except for myself. Behind them, a tower soared, a spire rising at least 600 feet, silhouetted against the storm-chalked sky and topped by a huge flower of translucent, milky glass. The flower's petals were shut into a bud, guarding the observation deck in its center from the storm. Every few seconds, bright gold sparks dashed through the enchanted glass. A dozen dark shapes circled the flower, Surfing the wind air currents. My brain expected them to be birds, but birds had only one pair of wings, not two. The feeling of wrongness was overwhelming. Okay, yeah, I do think maybe she's from a different world. Either she's time traveling or she like got sucked in here from like a different universe. Yep, the mage tower and the strange bird things were still there too. I huddled against the wall. I couldn't touch the mage tower, but I knew it was real. For one, I had pictured it differently in my head it was a flawless pale needle, elegant and almost dainty. Hmm, that's how I think of the space needle. If this had been a hallucination, what I saw would have matched the vision in my head, but the reality was nothing like that. This tower jutted up, defiant, its walls worn but strong, as if it had grown from bedrock, and it felt old, like it had stood there for thousands of years, and would stand just like that for another millennium, timeless and indifferent, while the city around it crumbled into dust, rebuilt and crumbled again. No, it was real, like this endless rain, like the pain in my freezing bare feet, because of course she has bare feet, because we're in a depressing medieval fantasy world where everything is bad and nobody has shoes. Oh my God. Why am I thinking of Monty Python? How do you know he's the king? Because he's the only one not covered in and like the gnawing ache in my stomach. In the distance, a bell tolled 4 times. 4 p.m. It wouldn't be too long now. To say that this was not the way I envisioned spending my Sunday would be a criminal understatement. Today would have been my one day off. I should have spent it watching Netflix. Okay, now we're getting some clarity here. This explains why she called the buildings medieval looking, because that's what a random modern person would say, not somebody who actually lives there. So I was correct. She is got sucked into this world from some other place, nibbling on pizza and reading while lounging on my couch in my tiny apartment in my soft sweatpants, warm and dry, not wrapped in a dirty rag, shivering in the grimy alley while the sky dumped gallons of cold rain on my head. And also, maybe this medieval world, things don't suck entirely. Maybe just if you get sucked there from your own world and you kind of have to make do, then maybe that sucks a little bit. I guess we'll find out. I wasn't a big reader through most of my childhood, but when I was 16, my first serious boyfriend broke up with me, and it was hell. My brain kept rehashing every moment of the relationship in excruciating detail. One afternoon, as I lay in bed, wallowing in self-pity, my mom handed me a thick fantasy book, and when I turned up my nose at it, she told me, "Maggie, you need to live in someone else's head for a bit." Oh, I love the name Maggie. That's cute. Yeah, this book has a lot of names I like. We've got Ilona, we've got Maggie. I'm here for it. At least it's not like some fantasy name that's like nothing but a string of consonants and then they expect you to be able to just like figure it out. I'd lived, uh, I'd thought I would read a few pages. When I came up for air 5 hours later, my breakup was an afterthought. Some seriously messed up stuff happened on the first page, and I had to find out how it turned out. Somehow, by the end of those 5 hours, the book had wrung me dry. I could deal with life again. Okay, but I want to know what book this is because if this is our world and then the Netflix exists, then whatever book she's reading also probably exists. So, what is it? I guess we'll never know. I'd tried every genre under the sun since, but fantasy was my vice of choice. There was something about blades and magic that did it for me. Deadly sword masters, thieves prowling through moonlit streets, dark magicians, warrior princesses, ruthless nobles, majestic dragons, hideous monsters. I loved it all. But a hot dude in armor with a sword on the cover, and my eyes glazed over while my hand crept to the buy button. Budget be damned. I had read enough fantasy books to fill a library, but the very first series was my special treasure, set in the city of Caer Toran, capital of the kingdom of Relis. The story revolved around the power of struggles of 8 noble families and was full of fantasy tropes. It would be cliché, except that the superb writing moved it right past the stereotype typical into a classic. The characters felt so real they practically jumped off the page. The series had 2 books, The Thieves of the North and the Lord of the East. The third one had never come out. I had been rereading those two books over the last 10 years. Whenever life got to be too harsh, I would grab them off my bookshelf, and they never failed to pull me out of whatever funk I had gotten on my time. I could quote passages from memory. I had stalked the author's abandoned website religiously for any hint of a release date. Did the author get sucked into this world? Is that why the book hasn't come out? Her world became real and she got sucked into it. Otherwise, she was basing her books off of a real world and got sucked into it. More realistically, I'm guessing the author just got serious burnout out of pressure from Amazon's algorithm to constantly pump out new content. So she just like is eating chips and watching Netflix herself because the struggle is real, my friends. I haunted the fan groups looking for rumors and stewing in collective frustration. Adrien Latour, the author of the series, was always an enigma. He didn't do social media or appearances, and his bio, with a black square where the author photo should have been, consisted of a single sentence. Adrien Latour, man of dreams and chronicler of stories. Is he gonna be like the romantic interest? Because that sounds like. Because when I picture like a male author, like I don't picture a super hot person typically. I picture kind of like a C.S. Lewis or Tolkien, kind of like your plump, charming guy, but not exactly like your tall, dark, and sexy kind of guy, like exactly. But this line sounds like the author is crushing on this author a little bit, so I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. After the second book came out, he seemed to vanish. He never wrote anything, and nobody offered an explanation as to why he stopped working. The story just cut off. One of my favorite characters was left standing on a box with a noose around his neck for a decade. 3 nights ago. So, here. Now, I only know this through hearsay because I have not read Game of Thrones, but I understand that this is how Game of Thrones fans feel because apparently that series is still not finished, even though the TV series is finished. I know nothing about this because I haven't read it because that stuff's like too gory for me because I like not as explicit kind of books. But anyway, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, is this how you feel what this girl is describing here? I'd really like to know that. And nobody offered an explanation as to why I stopped working. The story just cut off. Okay. 3 nights ago, after the long day of delivering groceries, I went to sleep in my apartment south of Austin and woke up in Caratorin. A hint of movement on my left made me turn. Something small padded through the rain towards me. I brushed the water off my face. A red furry creature padded out from the rain-soaked alley and stared at me with unblinking dark eyes. Its head was round, with curved Martin ears that stood straight up, a button nose, and very long whiskers. Well, it's so cute. I hope it doesn't turn evil and attack her. It didn't walk. It slunk, its longish body sitting low on four short legs that ended up in webbed hand paws, armed with sharp, retractable claws. It was as if an otter and a ragdoll cat had a baby and dyed it red. That's so cute. You know what? If this was like a Disney movie, I'd be like, that's the thing they made just so they could sell toys of it. That's what I think. A stelka, a female one. Males had tufts on their ears. Selkas infested Karatoran and its five rivers, catching fish and rats, eating garbage, raiding cellars, stealing everything that wasn't nailed down, and generally being a nuisance. Like overly smart foxes, except the normal foxes at least hesitated before they scurried over to a place to take a bite out of something 5 times their size. Last night, exhausted and desperate, I'd fallen asleep under some busted crates, and this morning I woke up because one of those red assholes decided to chew on my leg. This just sounds like my cat. He's at that annoying teenage cat phase right now. The Stelka opened her mouth and showed me sharp white teeth. It couldn't be. I crouched and tilted my head, trying to get a better look. No, don't look in its mouth like that. It's going to bite your nose. Not speaking from experience with a teenage cat or anything like that. There it was, a white patch on Stelka's chest that looked like a lopsided half moon. I had seen a dozen Stelkas in my 3 days stumbling around the city, and only one of them had a white patch like that. It must have been really delicious. You followed me. My voice creaked like I had crawled out of a grave. You followed me. The Stelka eyed me. Nope. Nothing happened. The creature took a step forward. I showed her my rock. Another step. Hey, we're at page 3. Are you ever going to find out what happens? Probably not, unless you actually like buy the book and read it yourself, which may be worth it because you know what? I'm into this so far. This one good. We have a main character I don't hate, so that's always excellent. I like the writing style overall. That's good. I want to see what happens. Yeah, good job, Ilona Andrews. I approve of this. This random internet person who you've never met in your life approves of the first 3 pages of your work, so good job. Now you can sleep at night. Congratulations. Anyway, if you found this episode in any way useful or helpful, then I am absolutely shocked. So you can go on and go ahead and like and subscribe to somebody else's channel because this one absolutely sucks. Or if you're a glutton for punishment, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know what book I should read next. Until next time, happy reading, or like whatever.